And we'll be chatting today with Amber, the founder of Sanctuary Yoga. Very excited to chat with her today. In just a few moments, she is supporting our next issue, which will be our third issue. Very excited. Hi, Tal. Tal. Hi, Melissa. Melissa is actually our Georgia. There you are. I see you, Amber. All right, let's get started. And everyone's here. Work. The internet. Instagram magic. When it wants to work. Okay. Let's see here. Yay!
Good morning.
Good morning, Amber. How are you?
How are you?
Good, good. Thank you for joining us.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
I see you're in your studio.
I am. I taught a class just a few moments ago, and then I have another one at 11.
Yeah, it's a busy day, right?
It is. But happy to be here. Thank you for this
Thank
opportunity.
you. Can you introduce yourself and tell us, who you are, a little bit about your studio?
Sure. My name is Amber Voss. I've been teaching yoga for about almost 7 years now, and I've been a studio manager. I was actually the studio manager at the Yoga Hive, which is another one of your sponsors, for just shy of 2 years. And then I have always dreamed of having my own place, so I decided to find a space that I could afford and that I could bring this to my community. So I opened my studio April 17th.
Oh, we lost you. I think the internet is being persnickety today. Oh, and I love your story. All right, let's give her another moment to join. I think it just dropped out, but that's exciting. I love when that happens, when those stories that people, they work for another studio and then they just start their own studio. That's an amazing, that's a leap of faith, which I love. Okay, here she is again. Let's add her back in. Okay.
I'm back.
You're back. And I was like listening to your story, so excited. And I was like,
oh. So sorry. It's probably my internet. I've been having some challenges with it, but thank you for your patience.
Yes.
So I opened the studio on April 17th here in Stone Mountain. So what's interesting is our studio is right in a little unique spot of Atlanta where Stone Mountain, Lilburn, Tucker, and another small community called Smoke Rise, like it's right at the corner of all of these locations. So I opened on April 17th, and we're 5 months in, soon to be 6, but things are going really well.
I was going to ask April 17th of what year, but you're brand new. You're just born.
Right.
What has it been like? I mean, 5 months in, I mean, I'm sure it's exciting. I'm sure it's a lot of emotions, but what has it been like?
It hasn't been challenge free. Entrepreneurship takes, and this is not my first time to be an entrepreneur. I've had a career in the past, but I've also owned my own small business in the past as well. So I was taking that small business and overlaying those expectations and how well that did onto this. And then I've kind of, in the past 2 weeks, I've just had to readjust my own expectations of myself. So, growth will come, and we have a sweet community, and we've had people here since day one, and classes are growing. We just launched our new fall schedule. But I would be lying if I said it wasn't a ton of work. I've been teaching more than I ever have, even more than when I first started teaching at the height of starting yoga. But, there was a few things that I needed to seek resources outside of myself, even having managed a studio before and managing all the financials and all of that. Just a few things that I felt like I was missing that I needed help with. Yeah. So that's my biggest takeaway is like, don't be afraid to ask for help, and don't be, afraid to invest in that. Even if you're like, where's this money coming from?
Right.
Sometimes you have to spend a little bit to just help shore up your foundation.
And how lucky are you that you actually had a business experience, like background as well, to sort of lean on? I think, as much as yoga teachers or anyone that loves yoga, we love yoga. It is a small business at the end of the day. You are running a studio. So to have that skill set is an invaluable skill set to have. And it's so great that you had that, because I think there's a lot of, you know, as much as you love anything, you have to be practical, right? We don't want to be practical about things we love, right? We're like, we love it, let's do it all the time. You're like, oh wait, there's rent, there's all these things I have to do.
There's bills, there's teachers paid, you know. Yeah, it's a lot. It really does come into a lot. And I just hope to make it sustainable and build the studio to the capacity that it needs. We are small. We only have 14 spaces to practice, and but we have 5 excellent teachers on staff plus myself, so I'm number 6. And you know, we're just taking it a day at a time, a class at a time.
How do you, in those moments when you say to yourself, I love this so much, I know I have to be patient with it, how do you get through those moments? Do you have a mantra? Do you have a practice to sort of get to these really challenging times, especially in the beginning? I'm sure it's going to be, you know, like this for maybe a little while, who knows?
Yeah, for a little while, right? And it's also yoga post-COVID, right? So many of my favorite yoga studios in Atlanta closed during that time, and places that I've practiced for a decade plus. And so also trying to approach it differently than how I've seen others approach it before the pandemic, right? And how do we make it sustainable? And obviously there needs to be some level of profit in order to be able to pay teachers and to pay the return that I've invested into starting a studio. And I know that will come with time. Do I have a mantra? Sometimes I just have to take a deep breath and go, okay, A has to take a back seat, and I have to just, you know, slow my expectations of what I'm putting on myself, which, you know, as a former business owner and as a former corporate career woman, I had a 22 plus year career, global buying. So, I have all of those old expectations and old hats that I still put on myself, even after having taught yoga now for so long and being a practitioner for longer. But it's really just that. It's just like, okay. Or I'll talk to my husband about it because he's a sounding board.
Yeah. And I love that it can be something as simple as just taking a deep breath. And it's funny you say that. I found myself this morning breathing very shallow because I was anxious about many things. And it was just that simple step. I said, okay, just one deep breath. You know, anyone can do this anywhere they are. It doesn't cost you anything. You don't need any training. And it was the most simple thing. And I took a deep breath and I hadn't realized how shallow my breath had been. And it was so, my body was like, thank you for the oxygen. You know? It was such a relief to be able to just breathe again.
Right. And this is my first Instagram live. So I had some anxiety around, I brought my tripod from home. Got my attachment to turn on the ring light. Yeah. So I have finagled a different setup so that I could use my phone. And I was just like, oh my gosh, this is the, you know, so there's that, but our practice teaches us, right, that we can acknowledge that we have those things. Yeah. And we can just take a deep breath and connect back and just, okay, I can breathe a little bit more fully and everything will work itself out.
How is your personal practice changed, if it has changed in any way, especially since you've become a studio owner and you're teaching yourself so much? So has your personal practice changed in any way?
My personal practice varies from day to day. Yeah. I really do try to start my morning in my yoga room at home, meditating, pulling cards, journaling. And with this new schedule, which has been happening now since Labor Day, I'm still adjusting to that. So sometimes that might not be in the morning. It might move to midday. Saturday, it was late in the afternoon, but I'm still trying to honor that. And then there's some days I just need to get on my mat and just move some energy. Yeah. And I also find lately some of my movement practice has been just outside without my phone, walking my dogs or just going for a short walk. Yeah. You know, that can be meditative as well, of just being immersed in nature. Mm. So those are the ways that I am dealing with it, and just trying to have grace with myself, because it's so hard. Yeah. And it's common for many of us to lose our practice as we dive into a business or this or that, right? So I'm just trying to honor the ebb and flow of it, basically.
Yeah. And I think you said you've been practicing yourself for over 7 years. And it's interesting to see as you practice over the years, I mean, how it changes. Sometimes in the beginning, I know for me personally, it was vinyasa, vinyasa, vinyasa.
Right.
It had to always, and that's only what it looked like. And then as I got older and COVID and everything, sort of evolves, you're right. Just being kind with yourself and understanding that it is changing. When I was much younger, it was very strict in it's what it would look like. And I'm so grateful now that it is a practice that allows me to evolve with it. So I'm like,
right.
It's so accepting and kind if you let it be.
Yeah. And I was the same. I had a practice in the early 2000s, and I came back to my practice in 2011 after leaving my corporate career and trying to find some semblance of balance, right? And what used to be really meditative for me was just flowing and moving into myself and finding strength and flexibility again, and just a safe place to kind of land and to just tune out everything else. But as we age, it changes, and it should change. And I really want to be that person who models that for my students and for my community and for everyone, because it doesn't, asana is just one small aspect of our practice.
Right.
And we lose sight of that, I think, often, because we feel like, oh, we need to move and flow. And really the past few years, I've been really focused on teaching the slower and gentler forms of yoga. I taught hot power flow for 2 years. It was great. But, everything happening in COVID,
right.
We're also inundated and so overscheduled. Like, how do we just be in our bodies and out of our head? And how do we soothe our nervous systems? And how do we look at that, from the holistic standpoint?
Do you ever look back on when you had that corporate career and those jobs? And I'm sure it was probably, maybe just as crazy hours, right? Do you ever look back at that and go, wow, who was that person? Like, does it seem like a different life? Or do you kind of look back and go, oh yeah, that makes sense for where I am now?
I've always been an overachiever, and I don't mean to brag. It's just my nature. And I do look back because I used to work 80 hours a week. And my job required me to be out of the country anywhere from 2 to 4 months out of the year for large spans of time, because I was a global buyer. It afforded me the luxury of seeing the world and traveling, but it was also very, very stressful, and you lose time with family and friends. And do I relate my current situation as a studio owner to that? There's really no comparison. Just because I can step away, or I can tell people, today is my day off. If you send me an email, I will not answer. So I'm really trying to be aware of that. And some days it's easier than others, right?
Yeah.
You want to get back to people, but yeah, I do look back at my corporate career and I'm like, I don't know how I did it some days. Yeah. And I hung up my hat there in 2017. I came out, back in, I was teaching university. I was doing all of these things, owning my own business, and just spreading myself probably thinner than I needed to.
Yeah.
But I also did it. And then I finally released my corporate gig fully in 2017.
Do you remember the moment, or if there even was like a specific moment where you said, this no longer works for me? There needs to be a change. Do you remember that moment?
Oh yeah. I was sitting on an airplane going to China.
Yeah.
And I was having some health issues myself, and I was crying. The plane had not even taken off yet. And I knew right then, I had been away for it for a few years, and then an old client came back, and not a client, I used to buy from them.
Yeah.
And there's like, hey, why don't you come consult for us? And I did. And I'll never forget that first trip for them out of the country, going back to people and places that I knew. Yeah. I know people thought I was crazy. That was my moment of knowing this really isn't for me anymore. But on the flip side of that, I didn't want to disappoint my friend who would hire me to be a consultant for his company, right? So I probably stayed a little bit too long. But yeah, I knew very clearly when it was time.
And isn't isn't that amazing that your body was the one that finally had to say to you, we give up,
Yeah.
right? Like, it's done, we're over. Like, your brain was probably saying it for a really long time, and your body just kind of like says, we're done. You know, we can't do this anymore. And it's so, and thank goodness you listened to it, right? I mean, because some people don't, and they keep going on, and they keep, I'm speaking for myself a little bit, but you keep going on in sort of your other corporate life. And you do it maybe out of habit or out of, like you said, guilt or something, but you were able to honor that voice inside of you, and congratulations for that. You know, not everyone will do that.
Well, I haven't always done that. So when you're speaking for yourself, you're speaking for me too.
Yeah.
So guilty of doing that for fear of letting others down. It's really about guilt. It's about, oh my goodness, I'm going to let somebody else down if I let this go. But also knowing very deeply that it was time.
Yeah. And at that point, you had already had a yoga practice. You had already been sort of doing both. Or, okay.
Yeah. I reconnected to my practice in 2011. Yeah.
So interesting. It probably helped at that point for you to make that transition, you know, out of that world into your new life. I love that. And so now you own a studio, so that's exciting, and you're 5 months in. And I saw on your website that you have retreats coming up for next year. Fun.
Yes, I taught in Italy before the pandemic, and then Elahi this year was my first retreat post-pandemic, which is here in the North Georgia Mountains. It's local. So yes, so Elahi is next May, and then Italy in June. Don't quote me. Look at the page.
Yeah, I think they were in the summer. I did notice that they were next year and in the summer.
Yeah.
So people have plenty of time. So what can people expect from those retreats? I mean, I always ask people, and I always sort of encourage people who have never done yoga, you don't have to have a huge yoga background, or even any yoga background, really. I mean, it's an opportunity to be in a beautiful place with great people, if that's all you want.
Yeah, no, for me, I tell people, like, you don't have to have any yoga experience. Like, if you can breathe, you can do it. And I think it really is as simple as that, because that's what connects you and gets out of here into our body. But the first retreat at Elahi will be just a short, brief weekend, co-led with a friend, Cindy Farrar, who is located in Tucker, and she owns a massage and wellness space. And I used to teach yoga for her there for years. So we're going to do, she's a Qigong instructor and a Reiki master. So we had just a beautiful experience there earlier this year, and we're just looking forward to go back. And we already have some of our students who attended the first time coming back already.
Amazing.
So
wow.
Exciting. But it's just a weekend to disconnect and to be in a beautiful setting and to connect with other like-minded, like-hearted souls. And sometimes you find that you're not so like-minded, but then, you know, we can bridge that and have conversations, and it's just a chance to connect. And it's a chance to nurture yourself. And then Italy is a place that's very dear to me and absolutely love, but it's an opportunity to just also disconnect, to immerse yourself in the Italian culture, to have tours, have cooking classes, to unwind, to have, you know, I've curated the entire agenda is out there on the website. So you can see every day what you will have. And it'll be fun. There'll be plenty of space for relaxing. That retreat also includes a massage for everybody that attends, and yoga twice a day. And, you know, just, I really do think it's just about giving yourself permission to step out of your norm and to just be. I haven't been on a retreat myself in a long time, so I'm feeling the urge for that too, because it's nourishing. And
we'll say, for someone like you who had as your job to be a global traveler, the fact that you chose this specific location in Italy will speak a lot to that location, because you've probably been to so many places and could have done a retreat anywhere, but you chose this specific place in Italy. So that's a huge recommendation.
No, I love Italy. I travel there every year prior to COVID. And so having canceled, like in 2022, I canceled my retreat because I was just off of a knee surgery. And also COVID had kind of, you know, impacting flights were so expensive, and people just couldn't afford to get there because the flights were so expensive from the US. So canceled, and then had another opportunity this year and just wasn't really feeling it, but determined to start. I started small with Elahi, jointly with Cindy, and jumped back into that after a 3-year hiatus. So, you know, you have to ease your way back into it. And I hear other teachers. I was on a call last night with fellow teachers invited to this teacher forum, and others who are just now starting to consider in-person workshops and retreats again.
Yeah.
So it's interesting how everyone has been impacted.
And it's ever changing still, right? I mean, we're still, I hesitate to say we're out of this, because it is still sort of a evolving situation, I guess you could say. And we never quite know what's going to happen, but we're always hopeful. I always tell everyone, I'm cautiously hopeful all the time. So.
Right. Same. Yes, same. And I mean, we have students who have COVID right now.
Yeah.
And then there's the flu season and all the things coming up. So we just have to, again, I go back to that ebb and flow. It sounds, you know, I don't mean it in a trite way. It's just like, but we do have to learn how to navigate the ups and downs of life. And I think that our yoga practice teaches us that, you know, especially as we evolve as students, as we evolve as teachers as well.
Yeah. And as humans, right?
Yeah.
It's just a daily thing in our everyday life.
We signed up for Earth School. What in the world? It's hard. It's not easy. You've got so many buckets that you're, you know, and all of us are running at breakneck speed to the next thing. So how do we care for ourselves? And I'm guilty of that as well.
Yeah.
So I have to be honest and own that. I'm guilty of the same, but just like we just come back to the things that we know that nurture us and nourish us, and the self-care practices that we have.
Yeah. And I think it's so interesting that one of the things we hear a lot too is giving ourselves permission, you know, and it's permission to relax and permission to enjoy. And it's something that should just be we do automatically, right? Like we should always say, yes, of course I should enjoy things. Of course I should relax and treat myself. But it has come to this thing where we have to give ourselves permission to do it. So to anyone, I say, give yourself the permission, go on the retreat, enjoy this community, enjoy the cooking classes. And, you know, I feel like we need this now more than ever, is this community and this, the theme of our next issue is joy. And there's a reason for that, you know, because it's something that I find myself really sort of celebrating more and more. The more I see it, I want to say, yay, it's there. You know, let's have more of it.
Right.
So
we have to be intentional about cultivating joy.
Yes.
And the permission aspect is like, I always tell my students, like, everything I lead you through in your practice is optional, right? You have permission to choose an alternative.
Yeah.
You can lay in Shavasana for 60 minutes if that's what you need, right? Just to be in community and have space. And I'm not joking when I say that, because I often ask, I'm like, and I really think that giving ourselves permission to feel that and letting go of the guilt, because there's so much of that in our society. Yeah. It's okay to say no to people and to have boundaries and to honor your energy and respect your energy too, because there's only so much that you can give, you know, to others. Yeah. And so it's a constant battle being human. Oof.
We all signed up for this, apparently.
We did. It's like, what were we thinking?
Right.
No, I'm grateful for it. It's you know, I just think that we're supposed to be here and to learn how to acknowledge that there really is no other. And that has been coming up for me a lot too, of how do we get rid of this othering that our society is so embroiled in, creating this divisiveness and this othering. Just let people be people, and, you know, realize that even though you don't agree with this person, maybe philosophically or politically, any of the things that are so hot button topics right now, can you just pause and see that the person on the other side or sitting across from you is also a human, and they have the same wishes and desires that you do. They want their family to be healthy.
Yeah.
They want to be healthy. They want to have a roof over their head. They want food in their belly. Like they want their core basic needs met too, just like you do.
Yeah.
And so I feel like if we can get back, to that, we can understand that we're all connected, and this divide, it's really just, it's our made divide, and it doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah.
But all of us are connected. It doesn't matter if you're in Atlanta, Georgia, or in China, or in Italy, we're all the same when it comes to it.
And thank goodness for a practice that reminds us to do that, and reminds us that shutting off a lot of that external noise, really, sometimes it's just noise, is as simple as sitting in your room and breathing. Like, it's not a fancy pose. It's not, a 45-minute hot power flow. Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. But really, it can be just breathing in your room and just reconnecting to yourself. And thank goodness, I always say, thank goodness yoga found me, like, it's like my puppy. Thank goodness I have my puppy, I'm so grateful for these things that remind me of this constantly. So thank you, Amber, for opening up another space, another physical space for people to be reminded of these things all the time. When I hear about new studios opening, I'm like, oh, yay, like it's still happening. And I'm so grateful. Yeah.
Well, thank you. Yeah. Thank you for this opportunity. I also just want to say that we do virtual too, because a lot of my clients are older and, so they're not willing to come back out to be in person. So we're teaching some hybrid classes here. Those are listed on the studio schedule as well. But how do we make it accessible for people who might not be able to leave their homes? So we're still doing that, and I'm grateful to have that ability to offer that to people.
Thank you so much, Amber, for everything, and for creating a space, and for supporting our next issue. Thank you so much for that. We only exist because of studios and businesses like you. So we're so appreciative and grateful for it. And check out our studio if you are in the Atlanta area. I'm going to save this. I'm going to send you a YouTube link. I'm going to post it there as well, so we can keep it. We'll share it in our newsletter, and we wish you all the best. Keep us posted on all your events. I'll put your retreat on our website as well, so that people can find you and take that blissful weekend in Georgia, or the blissful week. Is it a week in Italy?
8 days in Italy, yes.
Oh my God. That sounds like heaven.
There are Q&As coming up in early October, 2 different Q&A sessions for Italy.
Yeah.
So you can also find those on the website. They're not posted just yet, but they will definitely be there by October 1st.
And I think people like to plan ahead. So this is for summer of 2024. So everyone, start saving up for those retreats now.
Yes. And that gives you time, though, to budget and to carve out this space and time to intentionally, care for yourself. So thank you for doing that. And again, I'm grateful to be a part of your magazine and to have this first Instagram opportunity to go live.
Yeah.
My nerves are gone. So thank you.
Excellent. All right. Thank you, Amber, so much, and have a great day.
Thanks. You do the same. Bye.